Imagine for a second that you have to skip showering one time per week because you can't afford soap. Let me take it a step further. Imagine for a second that you have to skip your medication every other day because you have to ration it. The hard truth is that about 40% of Americans cannot afford the basic necessities like rent, medications, even food. Which is why what is happening right now in the United States is a huge concern. And the Trump administration has already admitted that they understand what is going on and they have a plan. This means we could see the federal government give more Americans some assistance. And I'll get to that in just a moment. Because look at what the Trump administration is considering. And this isn't anything brand new, but there's been some developments here. Look at this. It says Trump considering $2,000 tariff dividends for Americans. Now, this isn't anything new because we learned about this about 2 weeks ago. That the Trump administration has said that they are considering taking some of this billions and billions of dollars in tariff revenue and giving it back to the American people. Okay, now exactly how would this work? Well, that we don't know. Here's something we do know. That President Trump knows that inflation is still a problem. And he does realize that these tariffs that we have put in place on other countries are causing more Americans to spend more money. As a result, he would like to give some of that money back to the American people so they can use that in their everyday lives. This means on things like rent, medication, utilities, even on food. This could be good. I want to read a little of this to you. Look at this right here. It says, Trump's proposal to share some of the hundreds of billions of dollars the federal government has collected since he slapped foreign nations with a steep levy in April comes as the Supreme Court is slated to hear arguments in a case next month that will decide whether the president has the power to impose such sweeping global tariffs. Here's what's interesting about what's happening. What we just learned is that the United States is bringing in so much money that we could supplement some of our programs. We could give some of these tariff revenue, some of this back to SNAP benefits. President Trump just said this past week that he's going to use about $300 million to ensure that the WIC program is funded and that people on WIC are still going to receive some of their food assistance and things like baby formula and milk. And that's great news there. But what about people on Social Security? What about veterans? What about people that are homeless or those that are just down on their luck and could use a little bit of an assistance? Well, that's why he's considering $2,000 tariff rebate checks. But look at this, okay? Because what's happening right now is that the Supreme Court is going to rule either in favor of this or rule against this and say it's illegal for President Trump to impose a reciprocal tariff on other nations. Look at this right here. It says America will refund about half the tariffs if the Supreme Court rules Trump overstepped, according to Scott Besson. Okay, that's somewhat concerning there. But based off what we're hearing, the Supreme Court is not going to rule against these because what they're saying is that the Trump administration is likely going to use some of this money before the Supreme Court even rules. But keep in mind what's happening right now. We have a government shutdown, meaning the United States government only has the essential employees in place. Everyone else has been furloughed. We learned that more than 10,000 people are going to be laid off. Not furloughed, laid off. They won't get paid. But look at this. This came out just today. It says, Supreme Court to run out of funding due to shutdown. So now, not only are we concerned from our own personal financial situations, but now the government is shut down, and due to the shutdown, the Supreme Court's going to run out of money. I want to read a little of this to you as well. It says right here, the Supreme Court is about to run out of money, and federal courts across the country are expected to run out by early next week because of the government shutdown. The nation's top court expects to run out of funding on October 18th. That's tomorrow. Okay? That's tomorrow. Supreme Court, out of money. No more money. It says, as a result, the Supreme Court building will be closed to the public until further notice. The building will remain open for official business. The Supreme Court will continue to conduct essential work such as hearing oral arguments, issuing orders and opinions, processing case filings, and providing police and building support needed for these operations. The federal courts are expected to see their funding dry up on October 20th. Okay. It does say right here that federal judges will continue to serve in accordance with the Constitution, but court staff may only perform certain accepted activities permitted under the Anti-Deficiency Act. It says, accepted work includes activities needed to perform constitutional functions for the safety of human life and protection of property, the statement said. This and all other accepted work is to be performed without pay, and staff members not performing accepted work will be furloughed. Okay, so Supreme Court is supposed to rule on these tariffs. This is likely going to be pushed back. Okay? Pushed back even further. So instead of the Supreme Court coming forward and ruling on this sometime in November, this could get pushed back into 2026. That's interesting because that also means these tariffs are going to continue. The American people will still pay for a lot of these goods that they're buying and paying this tariff on. But the interesting part is that could also raise the amount of money that the federal government gives back, and it also buys more time. That's the big one. Because right now what we're hearing is that the United States government, is shut down. There's a chance we see a tariff rebate here very soon. But what's very interesting about all this stuff is that how it's actually playing out, step by step by step. So I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what the Supreme Court decides to do. I don't know how far the Trump administration is wanting to go with this. But what I can tell you is that there's so many people here in the United States that are impacted and are struggling as a result of this, that there's a very good chance some type of stimulus or rebate will be coming. The interesting part, though, right now, is that this will not come before the government reopens. The federal government has to reopen first, and then they'll determine if this rebate will be going out to the American people. But just understand right now that the longer this government shutdown lasts, the longer we have issues with China and a potential 100% tariff addition to the current 45%, this is going to be devastating to millions of people. And not just here in the United States, but all across the world. According to the EU, they're saying that the United States has to figure this out, because if us and China don't get along, it's going to impact every single country, not just those two. So we'll see what happens, but just understand right now, there is a lot of discussion about a potential tariff rebate. The only problem is it's going to be delayed until after the federal government reopens. So as we get more information on this, I promise I'll bring you all the latest news and updates as soon as we get it, but that is what we know as of today. So again, thank you guys for watching. Consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the next one.